Help me hit 7,000 subscribers. Support the video with a like and share your thoughts in the comments. I read everyone. Thank you. I didn't expect my Tuesday to start the way it did. My phone was blowing up, notifications piling up like a storm warning I hadn't seen coming. 75 missed calls. 75. I scrolled through them, heart sinking further with each beep, each vibration, each tiny red number taunting me. Her name flashed on the screen. Clara. My wife, my partner of 10 years, the woman I'd shared breakfasts, bills, and late-night laughter with, had blocked me while she was on vacation. And yet here she was, back home, calling relentlessly. The first text I opened made my chest tighten. Why didn't you meet me? I stared at the screen, frozen. My mind raced. Meeting her? After the silent treatment she'd orchestrated for days? I tapped out a reply, half amused, half bitter. Oh, didn't your sister tell you yet? I didn't need to send it. The moment it hit, I could feel the storm brewing. And almost instantly, my phone vibrated again, then again. The missed calls kept stacking, each one sharper than the last. Let me back up. It had started a week earlier, when Clara announced she was going on a solo vacation. She said she needed space, time to think. I understood. I supported her, packed her bag with little notes, reminded her to eat properly, and even left her favorite snacks in the kitchen before she left. She kissed me softly at the door, the kind of kiss that felt like a promise, but promises can be fragile. The week passed slowly. I checked in, texts unanswered, calls ignored. Then the unblocking and this tidal wave of missed calls. Something in me tightened. Not fear, exactly, but a mix of confusion and cautious anger. I picked up the first call. Clara's voice spilled through, hurried and tense, almost frantic. Why didn't you meet me? I waited at the cafe. I called. Everything. I listened, biting the inside of my cheek. 100 responses, 100 explanations, none of which mattered because the story she had in her head already existed. It wasn't about logic. It was about perception, and right now, perception was raging against reality. I told her calmly, letting my voice stay steady, even though my fingers twitched on the phone. Clara, relax. Don't worry. Can we talk calmly when you get home? She hung up abruptly. Missed calls resumed. The barrage continued like a warning siren in my pocket. I sighed, leaned back in my chair, and tried to sort through my thoughts. It wasn't the calls that upset me. It was the underlying message. The vacation had been her escape, her experiment in solitude, and now she expected me to jump through emotional hoops, to perform, to validate her feelings instantly. But what about my week? What about the space I'd given her? I decided to step outside for a breath. The air was crisp, the kind of winter sunlight that made the city streets shimmer. I needed clarity, and as I walked, I let my mind replay the past few months. How Clara had started distancing herself, subtle signs I'd ignored, little flinches at my touch, the way her laughter no longer reached her eyes when I tried to make her smile. Like this video, if you've ever felt unseen in a relationship, your support helps stories like this reach people who need to hear them. The thought of confronting her directly, face to face, felt exhausting. But I had to. The buildup of tension had become unbearable. Each missed call was a little knife twisting in the invisible wound of our marriage. And yet, part of me was almost impressed by her strategy. She had orchestrated this emotional trap masterfully, and now it was my move. When she finally returned, the house felt smaller somehow, tighter. I could hear her footsteps in the hallway before she even appeared, a rhythm I knew well but now felt alien. She stopped at the doorway, eyes wide with a mix of irritation and disbelief. Why didn't you come to the airport? She demanded, voice sharp, slicing through the tense air. I stayed calm, letting her words hang, letting the silence do some of the work. Oh, didn't your sister tell you yet? I repeated, watching as her face shifted, a flicker of something unreadable crossing her features. Her eyes narrowed, then softened in that fleeting way that always made me second-guess my judgments. But I didn't. Not this time. The week had been a mirror showing me the reality of our connection. and it was clear. We stood there for a long moment, words unsaid piling up between us, thicker than the winter fog outside. I realized the moment was critical. What I said next, how I acted, could set the tone for the next chapter of our relationship, if there even was one. Comment below with the first thing you would say if you were in this situation. Let's see what our community thinks about handling such tense moments. I stepped closer, hands slightly trembling. Not from fear, but from the weight of everything unsaid over the past week. Clara's stare was sharp, almost accusatory, yet beneath it, I could sense a flicker of vulnerability. She had expected me to chase her, to show panic, desperation, or guilt. But I felt none of that. I felt clarity. "Clara?" I said softly, letting my voice carry calm authority. "We need to talk, not argue. Not now. But we do." Her lips pressed into a thin line, and she looked away, a small sigh escaping her. That sigh was louder than any shouting match. It spoke of exhaustion, frustration, and maybe regret. I watched her, studying every micro-expression, every tiny shift in posture. Over the next hour, the conversation unfolded carefully. She recounted her week, the frustrations that drove her to take a break, the sudden panic at returning home. I listened more than I spoke, letting her speak her mind. There was anger, yes, but there was also truth. A truth I couldn't deny or ignore. As she spoke, I realized something important. For all her emotional storm, she was still the person I loved, but someone I couldn't recognize anymore. The clarity settled in my chest like cold, clean water. I finally replied, measured and calm. "Clara, I've given you the space you asked for. I respected it. But this constant blame, this expectation that I should have somehow predicted your feelings, it's not fair. We've grown apart, and pretending otherwise won't fix it." Her shoulders slumped, a subtle acknowledgement. She didn't argue. She just looked at me, almost studying me. And in that silence, the weight of the week, the missed calls, the anxiety, all seemed to settle between us. Type the word clarity in the comments if you think honesty and patience can save a relationship. Let's see how many feel the same way. We sat there for a long moment, the tension slowly dissipating. Clara finally spoke, quieter this time. "Maybe I overreacted. Maybe I expected too much." I nodded. "Maybe we both did. But we can't go back to how things were. We need to understand who we are now and what we want from each other moving forward." Her eyes softened, and for a brief moment, I glimpsed the woman I had fallen in love with years ago. But I knew better than to cling to that. Clarity wasn't about clinging. It was about seeing reality and deciding how to act. Share this story with someone who might need to see how calm communication can prevent misunderstandings. Sometimes the most powerful action is a measured response, not a reaction. By the end of the evening, the conversation had led us through the labyrinth of hurt, expectations, and silent judgments. We didn't resolve everything. There were no magical reconciliations, no sudden epiphanies. But we had something rarer, understanding. As she got ready for bed, I realized that relationships are fragile, and sometimes people need space to realize truths themselves. Forcing, chasing, or reacting impulsively only breeds resentment. I had learned that the hard way, but now I could carry it forward. Comment below with your thoughts. Do you believe giving space can heal, or does it only widen the gap? Let's discuss how different approaches impact emotions in tense situations. Later, lying awake, I reflected on the entire week. The missed calls, the text messages, the confrontation, and the clarity that followed. It was exhausting, yes, but also enlightening. I understood now that love isn't always about chasing someone or proving your devotion. Sometimes it's about standing still, respecting boundaries, and maintaining your dignity. The next morning, Clara left a note by the coffee machine. "Thanks for listening. I need some time to think. I hope you understand." I smiled faintly. I did understand. And for the first time in days, I felt peace rather than anxiety. Like this video if you value emotional clarity, comment your biggest lesson from a relationship challenge, and subscribe for more stories that explore the highs and lows of real-life relationships. These narratives show us how emotions and actions shape our connections. That week changed everything. Not because of dramatic gestures or fiery arguments, but because of stillness, listening, and clarity. The missed calls no longer felt like a storm. They were a reminder that we cannot control others, only our responses. And as I walked through the quiet streets that morning, the cold sunlight felt warm. The week of chaos had passed, and what remained was something more enduring. The knowledge that emotional composure, honesty, and self-respect are far more powerful than any desperate chase for approval.